You're listening to the Residential Movement, where the focus is on making in-home dental care normal instead of novel or niche. I'm your host, Dr. Ashley Robinson, a house call dentist with a lot of passion for reaching patients who are best served in their home or residence. I'm here to encourage, equip, and empower dentists like you to begin offering in-home dental services for patients who cannot get to the office, while also enjoying a more balanced work life. We discuss everything from dentistry, business, ethics, mindset, and more. Listen in to learn how you can become a part of the residential movement. Hello there. Welcome to this week's episode of the Residential Movement Podcast. In this episode, I'm going to answer a frequently asked question that I get from dentists all the time. This question is, why don't you share more patient photos online? I understand why I'm getting this question because so many practices try to post patient photos to gain followers online who would then presumably become patients of theirs when they see all these smiling faces on their Instagram or Facebook or whatever social media they're using. If you ever visit the Instagram for my practice, AccommoDental, you might be able to dig back and find maybe one patient photo that isn't identifiable. You definitely won't see a patient smiling for the camera. Well, except for my sister, who is a patient. But most of our posts, which are created by my trusty assistant, Katie, are graphics, not photos. So anyway, here's the long answer to this question. Posting identifiable patient photos without permission is a HIPAA violation. We all know this. And I could easily post radiographs or clinical photos, but if I were to show a patient's face, I would need that patient's consent. Gaining consent isn't technically difficult, but it isn't always easy because consent can't be gained through just a signature on the form. That helps, but legally, informed consent follows a conversation. So I do have a media consent form that I used to present to every new patient, and some patients have even signed that form. So if I explicitly had the conversation of, hey, Mrs. So-and-so, you signed this form, so can I post a photo of us together online? And she said yes, then of course I could share those photos. So why don't I? Well, I don't share patient photos online simply because I haven't been willing to have that conversation. I've had enough families decline to sign that media consent form, and I've learned about how it made them feel. So now I no longer even present it initially when I meet patients. Having the media consent conversation is much easier with patients who willingly enter into your space in a brick-and-mortar office, but it's more complicated when you're visiting patients in their homes. I mean, think about it. I'm visiting my patients in their home because they cannot get out to see a dentist. They have some kind of medically complex situation going on. Many of my patients are not happy to be in the situation that they're in. Even my most upbeat patients make self-deprecating jokes all the time about their appearance or their appearance of their homes. I have patients who cannot get out of bed, patients who find bathing to be very challenging. They have very limited dexterity and they're not typically applying hair products or makeup when I see them. Now, I think my patients are beautiful, inside and out. I feel honored to be in their homes, regardless of how tidy or decorated they are. None of these superficial things are important to me. I couldn't care about any of that in the least. But still, some of my patients care. When that media consent form was presented to them in the early days of my practice, they felt ashamed and they didn't want to sign it. Why would I want to trigger someone's negative feelings upon meeting them, right? Or ever. So I stopped presenting that form and I don't even care to have that conversation anymore. Now, I'm sure I have many patients who would agree for me to take photos if I were to ask their permission, and maybe someday I will, but not for now. I'm not willing to compromise that rapport I have with my patients. It would feel weird to me to pull out my phone and start documenting or snapping pictures while I'm connecting and working with a patient. I never want them to feel like I'm there for a photo op. Maybe someday a patient will initiate the conversation, or maybe they'll volunteer to have a photo taken for social media. In that case, I'd take them up on that offer, but I don't need to initiate that conversation at this point. I enjoy just being there and focusing on patient care. On a more practical note, if we're talking metrics, social media is not a huge referral source for me. We're busy enough without posting patient photos. Patient photos are definitely more intriguing to outsiders, but most of my patients don't even use the internet. Plus, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I'm not the most active Instagram user, even on the Residential Movement Instagram, and this is probably to our detriment. So I do intend to become more active on social media for you guys because the Residential Movement isn't the same as a local dental house call practice. It's important to keep reaching dentists all over the country to inform them about this career option so that they can then serve people in their communities with dental house calls. But I just can't bring myself to dance in front of a camera or spend a ton of time collecting photos and then spend even more time staring at my phone to create these reels every single day. I'm not hating on people who do, but social media really can be such a time suck. I'm not even really on my phone to return texts or calls that often. That's why I prefer to create podcasts for you guys. Podcasts or other long-form content like blogs can be so much more meaningful because you can refer back to them as you're building your practice. I think I can explain more and offer more value this way. Visit residentialmovement.com/show notes to see the blog version of today's episode and past episodes. But don't get me wrong, I love connecting with you on social media. That's why I have it. It's so easy for you to DM me any questions that I can answer and potentially share with other podcast listeners. You can also email me at hello@residentialmovement.com. So what do you guys think? What's your favorite way to learn online or favorite type of content to consume? Reach out and let me know. Ultimately, I want to help you however I can. I make this show for you guys, the future house call dentists. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Residential Movement Podcast. Your future patients and I really appreciate you taking the time to learn more about this field. Talk soon. That's a wrap on this episode of the Residential Movement. If you like what you heard today, please leave a 5-star review and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you know someone who could benefit from this information, please share this with them. All of these actions help fuel the residential movement. Visit residentialmovement.com for show notes and for access to any links referenced in this episode. Thanks again for listening, Doc. Keep up the good work.